So I'm super excited about this section. Let's jump right in. All right, so what's the purpose of the system? So, really, the big purpose is to understand how to effectively run your business for optimal results. Put simply, the system is what you're going to do on a day to day basis and what you're going to use as a guiding force to getting started. So, we're going to tell a little bit of a story here. We're going to build a narrative because I think that that's the best way to communicate this system. And really, in this process, when we're building our system, it is actually not going to rely too much on us actually writing too much down. We're not going to have to build out, a 15-page plan, taking all these notes. This is actually just a mind mapping exercise to really understand what our day-to-day is all about. And we're going to use this story to really hopefully ingrain in your head the fundamentals of this system and the fundamentals of understanding how the customer plays a role in shaping our day-to-day activities. All right, so let's start with the customer. This, of course, like I've said, I think at every single point so far in this online program is we're building our business around the customer. That's essential to everything that we're doing. So let's start with the customer here. So here's an example that we've chosen here. This is Jim from Oakville, Ontario. I've wrote a couple notes about Jim here, so let's break it down. Jim is 53 years old. He's in the lower end of the baby boomer population. He's established in his life, 53 years old. He's had a career. He has a wife and 2 kids. One's currently in university and the other one's working, so they're graduated. They're already off in the workforce. So he has a more mature family. He doesn't have any young children anymore. That's not really the focus of his life. So he works as an accountant at Deloitte. He's had a really successful career. He went to university himself, graduated, and he pursued a career in accounting, had a really stable job, had a really successful life and career. He lives in a single detached house in Scarborough. I changed this up to Oakville. So he lives in Oakville, Ontario, which is not too far from Scarborough actually, but Oakville's a little bit of a better example that we're going to use here. So he lives in Oakville. He has a cottage. He enjoys to spend his free time relaxing. He goes up to his cottage on weekends throughout the summer, and he's really in that stage in his life where he's experienced a lot of the grind, a lot of the back end work. He's really set himself up. He's lived a pretty solid life so far, and now he's sort of transitioning into the later half of life where he enjoys relaxing, he enjoys doing what he likes to do. Jim drives a BMW 3 Series. He's not really into the fancy car type things. He drives a practical car. It's a nice car. He enjoys going out for dinner, and he's also a Club Link member in the summer. So he frequently likes to golf. He likes to watch sports. He's really involved in sports, but he also likes to be involved with his peers. And he drives a decent car, and he likes going out for dinner. He likes to enjoy the finer things in life. He's not a super wealthy guy, but he's made it. He's had a successful career. He's had a great life. All right, so now let's look at Jim's problem. Jim has his major problem right now is that each spring comes around, after the cold Canadian winter. Each spring he has a long list of household chores to do, and each year there seems to be just another one that comes up. He's lived in the same house for about 10, 15 years. He has just experienced every single type of makeover with this house, renovations, everything that has come up could possibly come up, and every single year there's always something else. So he's always got a lot to do with managing his house. He does live in a single detached house. It's an established house, so he does have a lot of management activities that come up with running his house. Whether it's outside, running his lawn, managing his pool, working on his fence that from time to time needs repairs, his hardscape, so the bricks and the stonework and his driveway. His garden, he likes to have a garden, he likes to have flowers and plants, that always takes maintenance. His deck, he's had to repair multiple times. He has a shed. He has, a lot of things in the outside of his house. And then, of course, the actual house itself, he's got his windows that are constantly getting dirty, constantly have to clean those. He's had to paint his garage twice since he bought the house. He's had to get a new lock. He's had to hire a locksmith. He's done all kinds of work to do with this house, and every single spring, after the snow melts, he always seems to find new things that he has to do, whether that's outside, whether that's inside. I've just named a couple of examples, but Jim's really invested a lot in his house, and he values his house. That's his home. That's where he goes to. That's sort of what he's built in his life. He's designed his life to be comfortable, to be happy, and he really values his home and values, that's where he's raised his family, and of course, goes home every night and lives there all the time. So it's a really important part of his life. It's the biggest investment he's ever made. Jim is also a competent guy. He's managed to have a successful career in life, but he's sort of losing patience. He's always been a guy who liked to figure things out. He was never afraid of a little hard work. He never shied away from that throughout his life. He was never a kind of guy that wouldn't cut his grass or wouldn't take care of himself, wouldn't take care of everything he has. And he's a very competent guy. He's not someone who's had the easy life. He's made it. And nowadays, now that he's made it, he really values his time and his energy to put towards things that he wants to actually, get, or that he actually gets enjoyment out of. He doesn't want to put it towards the things that he's done repetitively over the last 20, 30 years of his life. He knows that's going to take energy away from his day, and he only has so much of that. And he only has so much time. He's a hardworking guy. He works full time. He always has commitments with work. So he really values his time. He values when he gets a chance to use his time to do other things. And when it comes to actual purchases, Jim is really seeking convenience. He really values when it's something doesn't cause him headaches, doesn't cause him stress, doesn't cause him any additional frustrations in his process. But he's also smart with his money. He doesn't like being ripped off. He wouldn't have had the career he has. He wouldn't have had what he has right now if he was someone that was just frivolous with his money, willing to spend it anywhere. So he doesn't like being ripped off. He's your classic dad. Doesn't matter how much money he's got saved up, doesn't matter how much his career's advanced, he's always stayed frugal, and he's not a guy that's just going to let loose with his money. He's smart. He's going to be good with his money. All right, so let's look at Jim's typical buying journey that he has. And this goes along the lines of more of a generalized buying journey that he has with almost every purchase that he makes. And I've put a note here to reference. We do have a full customer journey map. We have a template that we actually found online that's really useful for this if you really do want to go in depth. But we want to just talk on a higher level, take a bird's eye view of Jim's buying journey, just to get an understanding of where Jim's head's at when when he has something he needs to buy, and walking through the experience of buying. When you buy something, it's not just a cut and paste. You buy once and you're done. There's a lot involved in that process from a psychological point of view and from an actual practical point of view. So Jim's typical buying journey starts off with a need or a problem. Jim he's not a guy that's going to spend money for no reason. He has a need for that, a problem. Maybe it's not necessarily a problem that's pressing for him. Maybe it's not something that keeps him up at night, but it's always rooted in a problem. There's always purpose behind what he buys. And when he identifies his need, typically Jim's a busy guy. He's got lots going on, and he's got lots of problems he deals with. So when he has a problem, he thinks about it a little bit, but he ultimately wants to get to the purchase. He wants to get past the problem. He wants to solve that quickly and get that done. He doesn't want to dwell on his problems. And the same goes with his needs. Obviously he has different needs that maybe don't address an actual problem he's solving, but he has needs to drive a decent car, live in a nice neighborhood, have the need to feel safe and healthy and happy. So that's where it starts off typically. Jim he has a reason for why he's buying. The next thing is awareness. So what this really means is Jim is or not just Jim, but in general, Jim's process involves being aware of the alternatives, looking at what alternatives he has. Jim is someone who obviously has a cell phone, and he's going to use the tools on his cell phone. Maybe he has some apps that he uses for referrals and reviews. He goes online. He does a lot of Google searches before he makes a purchase. He wants to understand what people are saying about the product. He wants to understand the product specs. He wants to understand what goes into a service. He wants to really understand, and he's aware of the options out there. He's aware of what goes into things. He's aware of the different alternatives that are available to him. The next thing is his consideration. So when Jim's, he does his preliminary search, maybe talks to some friends, maybe reads some online reviews, watches some videos. In that process, he's becoming aware, but then it becomes about consideration. So he wants to evaluate his options. Just like any purchase, we know that, very rarely do we just have one option, and I think we all just know that. We know that we can, when you go to purchase just about anything, when you're purchasing food at the grocery store, you have options to choose between fruits and vegetables. When you're purchasing, your cell phone, you have different options of, should I get an iPhone, an Android. You have different options there. So there's so many, every purchase that we have, we have to consider our options. And after we consider our options, that's when we make the decision. So when it's a more involved decision, so when it's let's say, for example, it's an expensive purchase, it's a purchase that's going to be a considerable investment, I think that we can say that the awareness and consideration portion of this buying journey is going to be a little bit more emphasized before we get to the decision, and the decision is going to take a little bit longer. Whereas when we have a smaller decision, so let's say, for example, we're deciding whether we need to get salt at the grocery store. That's going to be a quick decision. It's going to be a quick process. So it really varies, when we're talking about the time and the length he spends in this portion of the process, it really varies based on the purchase. So that's something to keep in mind when it's something that doesn't really take a lot of disposable income, doesn't really take a lot of, it doesn't weigh us down a lot, it's not something we think about, then the decision is relatively quick. After the decision is made, of course, it doesn't end there. The decision, you bike your purchase, but afterwards, you're going to have to actually use the service or product. You're actually going to have to get the service or product. So that's when it's delivered, and that's when you're putting it to use. If you're getting a service, you're experiencing the service being done, whether it's to you or whether it's addressing a need or problem you have, whatever it may be, or it's a product you bought and you want to analyze that product, looked into it. So when we're talking about the delivery and the use stage, that's actually a really important part of our buying journey, because we're not just, when we buy something, we're not just done. We want to understand, was this a good purchase? We don't want to get ripped off. We don't want to feel like it was a bad purchase. We want to actually analyze that decision. So that's when we are, still in that buying journey. The decision to purchase has been made, but we're still in that buying journey. That's an important thing to note when we're thinking in our own minds as entrepreneurs, and after we get those sales, it doesn't just end after the sale. There has to be the delivery of the goods, delivery of the service or the goods. And then after that, probably the biggest, most important thing is the loyalty/advocacy. So this is when after we've experienced the product or the service, how do we feel about it? We're going to evaluate, and for a bigger purchase, we're going to evaluate a lot. For smaller purchase, maybe not as much, but we're going to evaluate how we felt about that purchase, how it made us feel, ultimately what we feel compelled to do after the purchase. So do we feel compelled to talk to our friends about it, post it on our social media, write a review, or maybe we feel so awful with the purchase, we want to do the opposite. We want to tell everyone not to do this. We want to make sure that there's reviews out there that tell the truth about this product or service so no one ever does it again. Or maybe we just feel neutral. Maybe we're just like, you got the product or service, we are okay with it. We're not going to talk to too many people about it because it just wasn't worth it. It was something that happened. I got what I needed, and that's it. I'm not going to buy from them again. Maybe I will if I really need to, but it didn't leave an impact on me. There was no impact after my purchase, and my buying journey is completed. So again, we talk about the high level here. This is really just to get a general understanding where Jim's head's at when he's going through that buying journey more generally. We'll get more specific, but this is more generally. If you do want to review and actually, analyze the activities, the goals, the mindset behind the customer journey, which is something maybe you want to do for fun, you want to just get some more learning involved, we do have a customer journey map that will be in your Google Drive that's shared with you. So that's something that you'll have available, but this is just a high level view. You want to just think about it from a high level, and really what you want to understand in this is that there's 6 stages to the buying journey. It's not just a cut and paste, buy transaction. There's actually a lot of depth and substance behind it. And we want to analyze that and understand that because we want to build our business with that understanding. We want to build our processes with that understanding so we can have the most optimal customer experience. And ultimately, we want to, of course, get into that top level category of loyal customers. We want customers that really enjoyed their experience with us. All right. So here's the thing. Here's the thing with us right now. We're a startup. So if Jim's, so let's say Jim has a problem. Let's say that, he has this issue that he's trying to get solved, or he has this need. Well, guess what? We don't exist. We're not even in the realm of consideration for Jim. He has no way to consider us. It would be an absolute fluke if he were to come across us, or if he'd have to be in our immediate network or know us in some way. So, if he asks his friends for referrals, he's going to be directed towards an existing established company to choose from. There's no one's going to refer anyone without proof. It's very difficult to ask someone to refer you when they actually haven't seen what you do, what you're capable of. So that's not really an option for us. We're not going to be referred by friends or even just partners, establishing partnerships and things like that. We're never going to get reviewed because we just don't have a proof of concept there with our service yet. And then if Jim searches online, for example, which is something that I think we all do in our buying process, especially Jim, Jim really wants to educate himself, inform himself. He is going to find some highly reviewed competitors that offer premium service. And that's going to be a big driver for him. He's probably not even going to notice anyone with not very many reviews or none at all, because the people who are highest reviewed are going to show up first on Google. They're going to have the strongest web presence. They're going to have they're probably gonna have the resources because they've been around for a little while. So he's gonna find a highly reviewed company. We're never going to compete with anyone online. It's gonna be very, very difficult for us to do that. And if he doesn't do anything, let's say Jim's problem isn't something that's completely urgent, it's not really eating him up, or maybe he doesn't know the extent of what the problem is, maybe he's just not aware of how serious the problem is, so he doesn't do anything, well, his problem's just going to persist and it's probably going to get worse. So Jim, really, from our perspective and Jim's perspective, he is going to, he has to make a decision. He has to go out there and follow his process, but our biggest problem is that we're not involved in that process in any way. We don't fit in yet. So let's talk about how we can do that. All right, so what can we do? Well, luckily, we do have some key advantages if we put them to use effectively as a startup. So number one, we're motivated students. Jim, he himself has gone to university. He has kids that have gone to university. He understands what it's like to be in university and the student experience. People more generally, Jim himself and more people, they want to support students. Being a student is the greatest gift because it's really that time when people recognize that you're in that process of building yourself up. You're in that process of working on yourself. You're getting those skills. You're fine tuning. You're sharpening the sword. You're really getting ready for the real world. So as a motivated student, that's just going to automatically, make people compelled to help you and support you. That's just the reality of the situation. And when it comes to who our ideal customers are, we want people who are involved and active and care. And we want those types of people to be our customers. So those people are going to be supportive of us as students. So that's our biggest advantage. I'm emphasizing that on purpose because that is probably our number one advantage. The next advantage we have is we don't have any experience, so our service will be customized and personalized. With traditional services and more established businesses, they have processes and procedures that have been nailed down over years, maybe decades. And with those processes, when new things come aboard, so let's say, you'd say you do a painting business, when new painting products, different tools and things like that come into the realm, maybe you kind of you haven't really stayed on the ball with that because you're so comfortable within your existing established framework. You've spent a lot of time, as a business owner, you've spent a lot of time making sure your processes are narrowed out. You don't really have the ability to offer too much customization because you have employees and you need to train your employees to do a certain task. It's very difficult to have employees that will take initiative and will actively seek ways to offer that extra value for customers and go out of their way and have that entrepreneurial mindset. So it's a big advantage. Maybe you don't have a lot of experience with your service that you're offering, but you can offer a customized and personalized solution to the homeowner, and you can work with them in making sure that what you're offering is exactly what they're looking for. So you don't have that process yet. You don't have constraints, basically. The sky's the limit with what you can offer someone. Next thing is we're willing to go the extra mile to provide great service. As an entrepreneur, as the business owner, your biggest advantage at any given time is that you are going to be the one that cares the most about your business. You'll never find someone that cares more about your business than yourself. So we're willing to go that extra mile and provide a great experience to the customer because, again, they're our own customers. We're building that relationship with them directly. We're not a cog in the system. We're not a salesperson. We're not an operations person. We're not someone in the behind the scenes in the office, in the finance side, accounting side. We're someone who is responsible for everything. So we want to provide customer a great experience, and so we're going to be willing to go that extra mile. We're not going to half-ass it. We're not going to leave the job early because we're tired. We want to go home or our shift's over. We're going to stay and we're going to give it the extra mile. Next advantage we have is that we're bringing a fresh look to the industry, and we don't have any biases. So any sort of obstacles or challenges that have already existed within the industry, so any sort of issues that have had to be overcome, maybe when the service was newer and there wasn't really an established way of going about the service, or the products weren't there that complemented the service, or the technology wasn't there. We didn't have cell phones, we couldn't communicate with the customer, we couldn't establish all these things. We're coming in the modern 21st century, and we're ready to take on what the industry needs right now. We're building our business around what's out there right now, and we're actually looking for ways to do that better. We're looking for innovative ways. We're looking to bring that fresh look, and there's a lot of advantages to having a fresh look to an industry because you're really seeing it from a higher level. You're not seeing all the little problems that have gone on. Maybe there was a huge disaster that happened from a company that mismanaged their process, and the industry has evolved and overcome that, but they still have that stain on them. You have a fresh look. You're coming in with a fresh look. You don't have to worry about the past. What's in the past is in the past. You're in the present. And lastly, we want Jim's business. We want his business. We want it more than anything in the world. We don't have any customers right now. The number one priority for us is to get Jim's business. We don't have an option to tell Jim we can't service you, or you're not a priority for us. We have other customers we care about more. We want Jim's business. We want it now. He is going to be the lifeblood of our business. We quite frankly do not have another option. So the 5 that I've listed here, these are incredibly big key advantages as a startup that you have. And you've got to employ those and use them effectively. We're going to talk about how to do that. All right. But when we talk about all these things, these things only work if we reach Jim, number one, in the right place. So where Jim is located, and ideally where the service is taking place. Number 2, at the right time. So either when Jim has his need or problem, or before that, so getting ahead of the game. And lastly, with the right proposition, the right combination of value communicated in the most effective way. So like we said, when we look back at the buyer's journey, that we went through, and what Jim went through as a customer, if we evaluate that, again, we don't fit in unless we employ all the big key advantages that we just had in the right way and in the right place, the right time, and presenting it, communicating that value to Jim. So this is going to be really important to us because we could have the best value proposition in the world, but if we don't get to Jim in the right place, where he's located, at the right time, when he actually needs the service, or even before that, and with the right proposition, so saying that right thing, getting that to him right effectively, not wasting his time, getting and communicating that message. Unless we do these things, we're not going to reach Jim. So we got to do these things the right way, all right? So how do we do this? Well, put simply, we go to Jim directly. We knock on Jim's door and we reach him directly directly online, preferably at the doorstep. But if we reach him directly through a social media channel, or through someone like a friend or family, or through an email, and we present him our unique selling proposition. That's it. We need to go to Jim directly. We don't have an option. And that's the best part about being a startup founder, being an entrepreneur, is that you do not have an option. You have a ton of advantages over existing businesses. You have some disadvantages that you can overcome, but the only option and the only way to overcome and get off the ground and hit the ground running is if we go to our customer directly, go to Jim directly. So that's how we're going to do this. All right, so let's put this into practice now. Let's think back to Jim. Again, we're building this around Jim. We don't want to think about ourselves. We want to think about how we can provide Jim with the best experience here. So the spring is coming, and Jim's car is full of salt, dirt, mud, food crumbs, everything else that's gathered, both on the inside and the outside of his car throughout the winter. It's just a disaster. It's just something that he's upset about. He gets in his car on a snowy day, and he's upset. He knocks his boots on the side of his car, and he is just upset of all the salt and everything that gets in his car. His car's just a mess, and it's not even his own fault. It's literally just a product of his circumstances, and it's something that he goes through every single year. So we're focusing on Jim's car, and we're focusing on a car cleaning service for Jim here. So the warm weather is coming, and Jim's ready for a new beginning. We sort of all have that reset button in the springtime. I think we go through February. It's a dark, cold month. March comes around. We're starting to feel good. April, May, June, and then the summer's here. We're having the weather's here, and we had that new beginning. We've had that fresh start. So Jim's ready for that new beginning. He's ready right now. He's seeing his car. He gets in. He's got his awesome BMW that he loves, and he hates to see it get damaged and wrecked like it does throughout the winter, despite his best efforts to avoid that. All right, so Jim, when he has this problem, he typically takes his car to a professional car detailing center in the spring. So the spring comes around, he sees the snow's melting, he's confident the snow's not coming back. So he books an appointment, wants to book an appointment with his professional car detailing center. He's got one in Oakville, and he's got one, relatively close to his house, and it's something that he just has a routine of. He's accustomed, and he pays for this service, he pays $500. He pays a lot of money and he's not ever excited about the fact that he has to pay that much. He never really brings him a lot of enthusiasm, and he always kind of questions. He always thinking, why do I have to pay this much? This is a service that I know what goes into it. Jim, he's done it himself before. He's competent. He knows he knows very thoroughly what they do. But again, he's just paying because it's a convenience service for him, and he's willing to do that because there's some stability, there's some safety and security in the process. So the other issue with this is that Jim's not the only one. There's hundreds, thousands, so many people that are looking for the service at the exact same time as Jim. So as a result of this, they're typically overbooked at the start of the season, and it's really difficult to accommodate Jim, and they don't have any need to overly satisfy Jim or overly go over the top for him because they're always overbooked. Their phone's ringing off the hook, when the spring comes, and they are just trying to control that flow and make sure that they can, do a reasonable job for the customers that they do have to stay in business. So they're typically overbooked, and they don't even want Jim's business that much. And worst of all is that Jim has to inconvenience himself for this convenience service because he has to go drop his car off for the full day and sometimes even multiple. So it's a nightmare of a process. He hates the process. It's something that's a necessary evil in his life. He really doesn't like it, and it's a big inconvenience. So he's paying a lot of money for convenience, but at the end of the day, he's inconvenienced pretty much at every step. And now let's look at his actual experience with them. He's experienced, actual experience in general. And the reason he goes here is because he's not a dumb guy. He's a smart guy, and there's a reason he goes there. It's because he's had bad experiences with other detailers in the past, and he values his relationship with the company he chooses. He's not a guy that just chooses a new company every year or just randomly does things. He does things with purpose. His buying decisions matter to him, and he's had bad experiences with other detailers in the past. So he values his relationship with the company he chooses, and this relationship is not great, but it's good enough. It satisfies his basic needs, and he does a pretty good job at cleaning his car himself. He keeps it clean himself throughout the summer, and pretty much throughout the winter. It's just naturally over time. It's just inevitable. It gets dirty, and he's pretty knowledgeable about the process. He's not a guy that just says, I'm going to get a valet, take my car. I don't even care about this car. It's not. His car is important to him. He's involved in the process. He knows what's going on. And really what it comes down to, like I said before, he chooses this option because it's safe, it's reliable, it's a steady routine for him. It's not something that causes him, it's not something that's a huge win for him, but it's also not a huge loss for him. It's something that gets the job done. He's not overly excited. Maybe if someone asked him, where they should get their car cleaned or detailed, he'd maybe say, I go to this place. They're pretty good, they're reliable. But he wouldn't say, you have to go to this place. Or he wouldn't be at a dinner party with his friends and say, I just got my car detailed, it looks phenomenal, and these guys were the best people to deal with. Mike was such a nice guy. Alex cleaned my car, and he did a phenomenal job. It's a great process from end to finish. I was happy as hell with the experience. That's not something he's going to have with this company. He's satisfied. He's probably gonna go back because it's reliable and it's steady. It's routine for him. So let's revisit Jim's buying journey with professional car detailing company. We talked about it more broadly. So his needed problem, we addressed that. He has a dirty car. His car, no matter what he does, he always has his problem. He can't get over it. He's aware of the options. He gets, from time to time, he'll go up on Google, especially when he's going to Google him to give them a call. He sort of sees, the list that Google provides, sees some ratings. But again, he's reluctant. He's been aware of that there's other options. He's tried other options. He doesn't like spending $500 to clean his car. But again, he's had bad experiences. He just doesn't trust them. It's not worth it for him. He'd rather pay the extra money to get that convenience right now with the information he has available to him. His consideration, it's very narrow. He gives maybe a brief look at other ones. Maybe from time to time he gets an ad online for a new option, but he very rarely considers anything else. He's pretty set in his ways there. And his decision, ultimately, he's not happy at the decision point. He makes that decision because he has to, or he feels that he has to. So he makes his decision, and the delivery, the process, the experience after he makes that decision, he doesn't love it. So there's a lot of inconveniences. He has to drop it off at a physical location. He has to deal with people that aren't exactly, thrilled to deal with have his business. He has to call a bunch of times, communications off, and ultimately they don't even want his business that badly because they're busy all the time anyways at this time of year. So it's not really a priority for them. And then lastly, loyalty advocacy, like we were talking about, he doesn't really feel that loyal to this company. He's really just loyal because he feels it's a necessity. He feels like there's not other options, and he's a busy guy. He doesn't have the time to call a bunch of companies to review their websites, try to figure out their online booking systems. He just doesn't have the time for that. So he's semi-loyal to his company. He gives them his business, but he's a little bit reluctant to. He's not gonna be a guy who talks about it too much. So now it's time to put an end to Jim's poor experience. This is where we come in. So our mission is to show Jim why we're a better alternative to what he's currently experiencing. We're showing Jim that there's a better way. You don't have to do it this way, Jim. There's better alternatives. We're going to come in. We're going to be the hero. We're going to solve your problem. And here's how we're going to do it. So our mission is narrowly focused. We want to show Jim why we're the better alternative. Jim is already a customer of this service. He knows about the service, and he has what he thinks some knowledge about the industry and how it works. But we're going to come in. We're going to present a better alternative. All right? Okay. So first we need to find Jim. All right, so Jim, we don't know yet. Jim is someone that we want to find, quite frankly. So let's start off. And again, this is something you can do. It's sort of like a fun exercise. Just want to paint this picture of what the demographics look like in Oakville in terms of population. So I'm using the census data of 2016. It's the most recent online available census data. So let's look at Oakville. So if we want to look at a whole, we're just mapping out basically the size of the opportunity here. We want to understand what the size of the opportunity for our service, and within within where Jim is, where we want to do business, we want to understand that area. So Oakville sounds like a big place, and it is a big place. Almost 200,000 people live here. Now it's definitely surpassed that. It's way surpassed that. And then if we look at, and again, this link, you can follow this along. We look at the total private dwellings. So that means the private households, condos, apartments, townhouses, all those, basically anywhere people live. There's 66,000 of those. And then if we narrow that down to the single detached households. And the reason we're doing that, we're narrowing it down to the single detached households, is because typically higher income individuals, people with disposable income, will live in single detached households as opposed to townhouses, apartments, those types of places. That's not to say that people who live in those places don't have disposable income. It's just that their disposable income is probably more likely to go towards more necessary or semi-necessary purchases rather than a more convenient service. So when we're talking about convenience, we're talking about people who are seeking convenience. We're talking about people who have a sizable percentage of disposable income. If we're thinking about Jim, he has $500 to spend on cleaning his car, and he does that annually. So we're talking about people who have disposable income. And then we narrowed it down a little bit more to private households with a family of 4, because as we mentioned with Jim, he has a wife and 2 kids. And so if we're looking at the private households with 4, that narrows that 40,000 to down to 15,800, just under 16,000. That right there is the true market size. So we can forget about the population. We can forget about some of the other things. We're narrowing it down to what our true market size is to get an idea of what our opportunity is within the city. Obviously, that number is very, very low. We're probably going to want to widen our operational area. We want to go a little bit further than what we had initially planned. So maybe we just plan to operate in our own small town, but maybe we need to operate also in the surrounding towns, because we want to make sure that we have enough of a potential target market when we are going out for our service, so that we can actually have a successful summer and achieve enough revenue at least to make ourselves enough money, and also just establish our business and getting the most out of the summer. So that's the true market size. Oakville has a massive market size. That's a lot of households. We only need to maybe get 100, 150, 200 of those to surpass $30,000, $40,000 in revenue. So we're doing we have a really, really massive market, and we don't even need to focus on all of Oakville. We can focus on a much smaller region of that. So if you're looking at that 16,000, maybe you've done a little bit of research on your own city and you're not seeing a number that big, that's a very, very, very large number of households, number of places with families. Like that's way, way more than we need as a market size for our summer business. So if we're looking at this, we could have many mobile car detailing companies within this region, because it's so large. And that's another thing to note when you see competitors. You see a lot of other companies that offer this. The market size really can dictate, if just logically speaking, if you see a lot of competitors, you want to look at does that correlate to the population? Does that correlate to to the actual size of the opportunity here? Because of course, if this was a place with 16,000 private households with family of four and there was no one, you would have a heyday. You would really begin your business off the ground really quickly. So that's not going to be the case. There is going to be competition. You have to compete, obviously. All right. So we know now the size. The number is not that important because at the end of the day, it's going to come down to just a couple hundred people or less than that to actually run our business for the summer. So we're going to use a tool called Census Mapper. Census Mapper is really cool because they visualize a lot of the data that you can find on census. They visualize it into actually specific locations. They break it down. It's a really cool website. So I provide the link there. You click on that, go to the link or just copy paste that and go to the link online. Maybe follow along with us if you want for this. But we're just going to go through it. You can also use these slides afterwards when you're actually mapping out in your own location. All right, so when you go to censusmapper.ca, if you look at the top here, you can see censusmapper.ca. This is the first thing that you'll see. This is going to be a pop-up, published maps. So again, these are just published maps based on census data, and I believe anyone can actually publish data on this map. Yeah, if you look at the top corner actually, or make a map, you can make an account, you publish a map. So there's a lot of map options is what I'm saying basically. So the one we're going to want to focus on and want to put the arrow here is the Medium Income Explorer. So the reason we're focused on that is because that's going to give us an idea of where the households are with disposable income. We don't want to go, it would be cool to just look and generally have an understanding of all the different areas. But when it comes down to your service, when we talk about like narrowing down your specific focus, your service that you offer, your summer business, is going to be something that's targeting people with disposable income. You don't want to go after people who don't have disposable income because you'll just find that you're just talking to a lot of people and not really getting a lot of customers. So here we click on, it should be the fourth option down, might be different for you by the time you go on this, but it's called Medium Income Explorer. So if you just want to search it up, you'll see that there. All right. So when we click on that, it starts off, by the way, it always starts off at West Vancouver, so you just have to scroll it, use your mouse to scroll it over. So I scrolled it over to Toronto here, this region. And so if you look, this is kind of a glimpse of what it looks like. So you'll have actually like a lot of things that you can click with regards to this area. So it's really a really cool map. And so here, it's the actual income explorer. So you'll have the high end of the income, low end of the income, and you probably want to stay over 100,000 in that range. Just understanding what the costs of living are, the costs of different things. Just generally speaking, you want to go after the top. I would say somewhere between the top 10% of the population when you're looking at your services. So you're going to go after this pocket of people. So now let's look at this more specifically. So this is a little bit closer up, and then this is actually a really closer up. So you can actually get very, very specific. And when you click, so you'll click when you're there, you'll click on one of these, as specific as possible. And obviously the darker, so if we go back for a second, the darker is the higher income. So you want to click on the darker regions, and you want to find the areas that have the most darker regions. So it doesn't necessarily mean large. This one right here is pretty large, but it doesn't look like there's a lot of households. Whereas this one is, this one looks like a great opportunity because it looks like there's a lot of streets, a lot of houses, and it's also entirely dark. So it looks like that's a very high income area. And if you were to drive there and just driving around, obviously you want to do that before you get out, if this map isn't entirely accurate. From my experience, it's been entirely accurate. But you want to drive around and see, but you'll probably find in this area that there's a lot of upper middle class people, a lot of nice houses, and a great area to tap into for your home service business. All right, so that's something you can explore, and what you're going to do is you're going to use that information to understand the neighborhoods that you're going to target, because you don't want to go out, I think a lot of us have this bias. I had this bias when I first started, is I went out in my own area. And what I figured out pretty quickly was that I was wasting a lot of time because I was knocking on doors where people didn't have the highest disposable income. I didn't live in the richest part or the parts with the most upper middle class people. So I sort of had to take a step back and realize that maybe my own neighborhood right behind my house isn't the best place to start. Maybe I have to just drive 10 or 15 minutes to find that best place, and then that's where I set up shop. That's where I do most of my business and my work. So that's how you'll kind of find, and this is a way to sort of skip that fast track a little bit so you don't waste any time just going to the best areas right away. And there's lots of these areas. If you're in the right area, just kind of finding those pockets of houses and those densely populated areas with single detached households will typically be a winner for you and your service. All right. So once we've located our target customer, Jim, we need to pitch him our services. So for this, we're gonna do a 1 to 2 minutes, probably around 1 minute, can be up to 2 minutes, maybe a little bit less. We're gonna create an elevator pitch. It's called an elevator pitch. Essentially, an elevator pitch is really just a sales pitch or sort of an introductory pitch that outlines our value proposition and what our unique selling point is and what we have to offer. So really what this pitch is going to do is answer this question. What is going to compel Jim to change his customer journey? Remember, he has this full customer journey. It's not just a buy, it's a 6-step process that he's really put thought into. It's become a routine. He's become, every year he does it, he becomes more ingrained in his his identity, what he does. It's just part of his routine. And so we need to craft an elevator pitch that's going to answer this question. What is going to compel Jim to change his customer journey? He has to change. It has to be enough of a compelling reason for Jim to say, you know what, this does sound better. I am willing to take a risk here because this sounds so much better than my current experience. This is addressing all of my problems, or it's addressing a key problem that I'm having, and I would rather take the risk on choosing this unestablished business and this student. I'm going to take a chance on them because it's a better alternative to what I'm currently offering. And that's a big decision that someone has to make. That's going to be a transformation in Jim's routine. He's going to change up what he does in taking care of one of his favorite things that he has, his possessions that he has, his car, and he's going to be that compelled that he's going to choose you to do his service. So that's a big undertaking. You have to come up with that elevator pitch that's going to at least spike the interest of facilitating that new thought process. So we're going to go through in the next section. This is building our system. In the next section, we're going to actually build a elevator pitch. We're going to go through all those steps. So don't worry about doing that right now. This is just the first step. After we've found where Jim's located, we need to pitch him our services. So don't worry about putting together your pitch right now. All right, sweet. So Jim is interested. We've communicated. We've done a great job at communicating to him, and he said, you know what? I'm going to give you a chance. So now what? Well, now we got to give Jim a quote, and we need to schedule him to. We need to choose a day to schedule a day for us to come by and get the job done. So remember, in this process, again, we're going to get more into detail in this process later on in the course. But remember that we're a startup. Let's use this to our advantage. First of all, we don't have a fixed pricing yet. We can be flexible. So our pricing, when we talk about business planning, we figured out a general price, but we know what our costs are. We know goes involved. We know what's involved in our business, so we can be flexible. If Jim's not sold entirely on the pricing, maybe we can negotiate with him a little bit. We can figure out what pricing works for him. We don't want to offer a massive discount. It's going to downplay our service. But we don't have that fixed pricing yet. We actually do have some flexibility. So let's use that flexibility. Let's put that to our advantage. The next thing is that Jim is our first customer. So we can literally come by any time to execute the service. Like there's no 9 to 5 constrictions. There's no weekday or weekend constrictions. There's no full schedule that we have that we gotta, oh Jim, can we fit you into this? We have a time slot next Friday at 2 p.m. It's like, no, Jim, we can literally come tomorrow. That's a huge advantage. When Jim's looking at convenience, he's talking about convenience as one of his, convenience is a big priority for him. You're literally saying, I'm here right now, Jim. I'm going to give you a quote that's flexible because I'm new, I'm starting up, and guess what? I can come tomorrow. That's a massive value add. Next, we need to communicate with Jim, and so we need to get his contact information, and we need to have a way for him to confirm his booking with us. So a big advantage here, again, we don't need to take him through this extensive process. We don't need to pass him on to a couple of customer service reps or figure out his needs. We're right there. We're right in front of him, and we literally just need to get his contact information. We maybe want to get some more information off of him, ideally maybe a phone number, an email. We'll talk about what information to get specifically, but we need a way to communicate with Jim. Let's use the fact that he's talking to the business owner, the salesperson, the service executor, the CEO, the chief financial officer, the chief operations officer. He's talking to everyone at the same time right now. He's talking to the one-man show, one-woman show. He is talking to the business owner. So we need a way to communicate with him. And lastly, how else can we help him? How else can we help Jim? We don't need to just stop right there. Jim, we're going to be cleaning your car. Is there any, do you need me to, maybe you want me to drive and change your winter tires. Maybe you want me to book your winter tire appointment for you. Maybe you want me to get some car scent boosters, some cleaning products. What else can we do for you, Jim? What else can I do? I will literally go, Jim, I will go to Canadian Tire, I'll go to Walmart, I'll go anywhere, I'll go to Home Depot, I'll do anything that you need for me to add value to your life and improve your experience and have a great experience with us. So we're flexible. We can literally offer anything to Jim. Again, we don't have a fixed structure yet. Let's use that to our advantage. No one else can offer that. Those 4 points alone, no one else can offer that. So how can we optimize every single part of that? Now, finally, let's think back to Jim's buying journey. Why is this sale so valuable for us? So why are we doing all this? Why are we going over the top for Jim? Of course, it's because we want to have an impact. We want to be good business owners. We want to be stewards of our community. But really, why is this sale so valuable? Well, if we think about it, it comes down to that last stage of the buying journey, the loyalty and the advocacy category of that. So that category is the most important as a startup, and that's sort of the biggest life hack that we can have in mind always when we're thinking about our startup is that's what's going to take us from startup to scale. That's going to be the transition. Because 75% of business that happens within any industry is generated through referrals and word of mouth. That's a stat you can look up, and that's something that goes across the board. Some industries probably a little bit more, some maybe slightly less, but almost all business is done through word of mouth, through referrals, whether that's online reviews, whether that's engagement directly with talking to friends, or just generally like people asking for referrals and word of mouth. So generally speaking, the buying journey, the most important part of it is that loyalty and that referral word of mouth stage. So why is it so valuable for the business? Well, if we do an amazing job for Jim, there's going to be something in it for us more than just this sale. All right. So I can't believe that we got our first customers so quick. We're literally on the doorstep with Jim and we've sold him. So now what are we going to do? We've got our first sale. We're sitting there. We're excited. We're smiling. Maybe we got the clipboard in hands. Maybe we got the phone in hands, jumping up and down. Super excited that we actually got a sale for our business. First day out. Maybe it's our second day out. Maybe it's the third day out. But we got our first sale. We are excited right now. So Jim has given us way more than a sale with this. First of all, Jim, just that excitement alone, that's an amazing gift to just experience that joy. You never get the joy of your first sale, or nothing feels as good as your first sale when you're getting your startup off the ground. So Jim is giving us more than the first sale. He's given us what I see as an opportunity to blow him away with the best customer experience he's ever had. He's not just going to get his car cleaned by a company. He is going to have a transformative experience. He's going to have the best experience that someone could possibly have with a car detailing service. So we're going to blow him away. This is an opportunity. Jim hasn't given us a sale. He's given us an opportunity. So number one, Jim is getting service the next day. Think about this. He's going from 1 day wait time, if not no day wait time, to from his accustomed what he's used to is weeks. So he's thrilled. He's excited about that. Number two, Jim is getting someone who is thrilled to have him as a customer and excited to do the work. Jim is accustomed to pulling his car into the professional car detailing center. He sees some guys that just look like they hate their jobs. They're doing it, get their pay and get home from work, just kind of make ends meet. Maybe he's getting students that work for a company. He's usually getting, in general, unmotivated employees who don't even know his name. They have no interest in knowing his name. It doesn't matter to them. Jim, this time around, he's getting someone who is actually excited to clean his car. Imagine that. Imagine someone's excited to clean your car for you. He's getting that. And next, Jim is helping someone get off the ground, and he has their loyalty forever. Jim has now, when he's used to going to the car detailing center, paying a lot of money, having a mediocre experience, he is not really feeling that good about that purchase. He's leaving that. He's like, okay, great. Like, my car's clean.Maybe the first time around, when he first got his car detailed for the first time in his life, maybe he was excited. He was like, wow, it's a new car. But every time he goes, he's got an expectation. He's feeling a need. But in this case, he is feeling way more than that. He first of all, he gets all this value. He's getting a lot of convenience. He's getting everything that he's ever wanted on steroids, basically. And not even to mention, I didn't even mention price in here. He's getting a great deal on. He's getting a great deal on the price as well. But fundamentally, he's helping someone get off the ground. He knows that. He knows that he's your first customer. He knows that he's helping you get off the ground. He can feel good about that purchase. And he knows that he has your loyalty forever. you're always going to be loyal to him. If you grow your business, if you keep going, no matter what you do, you're going to remember Jim. Jim is someone who's going to stick in your head. So all in all, everything considered, Jim is getting not only a great deal, he's getting a phenomenal deal. Like, the amount of value that Jim is getting from this experience is absolutely crazy. Jim just won the lottery when it comes to car detailing. He's getting so much value. What a deal. All right? So now let's say we've completed the service. Again, we're going to talk about actually putting together our service process and all that. Don't worry, we're not going to skip that. But right now, we're going to pretend that we executed the service. It went well. Maybe there's some hiccups. Maybe there's some issues. Maybe we had to come back a couple times, but we got the job done. It's done. Now, this is a chance to hit the reset button. This is a chance for a brand new opportunity. You have a whole new mission now. You've completed the service. You've gotten the sale. You've completed the service. Your new mission is turning Jim into an early, what they call an evangelist of your business. Evangelist is someone who goes out and is a preacher for your business, talks to people openly and happily about your business. This is your new mission. You want to do whatever it takes to make Jim so excited about his experience and understanding how much value that he got from this experience, and make him compelled to tell everyone about your business. So instead of collecting payment over the phone or virtually, you're right there with Jim. You got to be right there with Jim. If he wasn't home for the service, maybe sometimes a lot of service still around the home, you don't need to be home. Maybe you welcome him to not be home. You go back to his house personally at night and you collect payment for that service. You stay flexible with how he pays, and he doesn't have to even pay his taxes because you're under that $30,000 threshold. You don't need to collect any tax payments. You're exempt from that. So he's saving the tax, saving some money, and you need to be there right in person. He's getting that, he needs to know that the experience isn't over for him. You are involved in every step. You're not just collecting his money and saying, thanks, Jim, have a nice life. You're there. You're involved in the process. It's not over yet. So you don't just collect your payment from Jim when you're doing this. You offer him tips and tricks for how he can keep his car clean. You share some products that are helpful. You talk to him about the work that you did. You walk him through the entire process. Like you walk him through, you show him his car. Like you have the doors open. You're like, Jim, I want to show you what I did here. I am so proud of this work. I'm so proud of the transformation. Hopefully you took a before picture. You show him a before and after. Show him a before and after of every aspect of his car. You just have everything lined up. You're like, Jim, you won the lottery here. You don't tell him that, but you're presenting that. You're letting him draw to that conclusion. So you're giving as much value. Again, any value that you can think of for your service, you're thinking of, and you're providing at this opportunity. Because again, this is a fresh start. This is a brand new opportunity. You already got the sale. You already executed the service. You already put in that work. Now you got to have the new mindset here. So you give Jim the full 9 yards, as they say, on the experience he just got from you. You need to communicate that with him. He knows it, but you want to refresh him on that. You want to show every bit of value that you provided to him, and you want to give him any extra that you can while you're in that payment collections process. All right? Now you've just left a lasting impression with Jim. Jim is blown away by your passion and drive for what you do. He thinks to himself, I wish my kids could have been a little bit more like this. Or even thinks, this young student reminds me a little bit of myself at my age, or at that age. You're kind of getting him thinking. He's got a smile on his face. He cannot believe that he met you. He feels lucky to have met you because he knows you're going to do big things. He knows that drive and the motivation and everything you just did for him, he knows that that's a tell of who you are. He's not going to associate you as the car cleaner or the window washer, the painter, the landscaper. That's not in his mind. He's associating you as a driven student that has a bright future ahead of them. So this is when you ask Jim to help you get referrals. You have to do this. You have to use this opportunity to leverage all the value that you've just given Jim, because you've given him so much value. You've given him a ton of value for what he paid for. And so you don't just mention this. You don't just say to Jim, hey, Jim, I would really appreciate if you got the word out. You help me get the word out. You get specific with him and you show that you are serious about it. Jim, if you mention that to Jim, it'd be great. He might mention to 1 or 2 people, but he's going to forget. He has a busy life. In that moment, you have an opportunity to connect with him. But after that, he's going to go in, maybe he's going to watch some Netflix. He's going to do some late night work, going to go to bed, and these guys' work routines. You're already out of his mind. So you have to take advantage of this one window. So you want to ask Jim specifically if he has any friends that you can reach out to or visit their house specifically. Like, I'm not even kidding when I say ask him for a list. Ask him specifically for friends, even that you can connect with online. Say, I have LinkedIn, I have I have Instagram, Facebook, whatever social media I have. I have my notepad right here. I can take down their emails. Just give me some contacts you have that I can reach out to. Or if he wants to reach out to himself, just say, I can send you over an email with some content about my service, some information, and I would love to chat with them over the phone and, not just, send them an email blast, but actually connect with them, because these are people now that you have the same sales opportunity with. You have the same, it's the same thing. They don't know you, but you've been endorsed by someone that they trust. So that endorsement is then going to alleviate any skepticism, anything that's going to give them reservations or roadblocks to getting your service. So that's why this is so important. Not only do you ask Jim for people that you can connect with, you also mentioned to Jim that it would go a hugely long way if he could leave you a short online review. If he could take a couple seconds and even offering to send him a link directly to your Google listing. We'll show you how to do that. Send him a link directly to your Google listing or your Facebook page and get that online review. If you could get an online review from your very first customer and set the tone that way, and then do that with your next customer after that, you're all of the sudden just moving at an exponential rate. Because typically when a company, and I'll say from my experience, when we had thousands of customers, you're typically getting maybe 5% of people, 5 in every 100, maybe 10 in every 100, who even consider leaving a review. When you don't have that personal relationship or you don't have that personal connection with someone, it's very difficult to compel them to use that time, or just, if you just think about yourself, when was the last time you left an online review? Most people don't. So that's why online reviews are so important, because it shows someone was so happy with the experience that they felt compelled to leave you an online review. So you want to do that. You want to ask him specifically, say, if you have the time, I would really, really appreciate, and just painting that picture, showing him, say, Jim, this is my Google listing right now. This is my website right now. I don't have any online reviews. I don't have any presence online. And as you know, we live in a very digital world. We live in a world that requires this stuff. So it would really help me if you did this. And again, you've just provided so much value to Jim. You've just done an astronomical amount for Jim. So this is why it's so important to communicate with him the value you've provided, because you're then going to ask him for some things in return. And these are the most important. This is the most important thing. And then after that, it's still not over. You want to even follow up with Jim by connecting with him on LinkedIn. Make sure you have LinkedIn and connecting with him on LinkedIn. If you need some tips for LinkedIn, obviously send us a message. Put it in the group here. We'll make sure that we all have optimal LinkedIn profiles. But make sure you have a LinkedIn. And even just send him a message, via email. Maybe it's a text, maybe it's a LinkedIn message, social media message, but send him another message thanking him for his business. And even then, just reiterating, saying, here's a link for an online review. Really appreciate it. Again, if you have anyone anyone else that you can help me get the word out, Jim is going to appreciate the amount of enthusiasm that you have for this. This is not you harassing Jim or bothering Jim. Jim is going to see this because, again, he doesn't see you as a car cleaner. He sees you as a motivated student. He's taken a vote of confidence on you, and he's seen what you're capable of. He wants to share that. And the easier you make it for him to share that, the more it's going to bode well for you. So this is critical. This is critical to scale. It's critical to establishing yourself quickly. It's a mistake that I made myself by not doing this, and a lot of people haven't done this. And this is the ultimate code to going from start, your first one customer, to your 10, and then ultimately to 50 to 100. It will help you get there. All right? So Jim was more than a first customer. Let's summarize this in saying Jim was more than a first customer. And I think it's very clear that he's more than a first customer. Jim was the stepping stone for you getting your business off the ground and setting up for success. Jim was the very first person in your life that took a true vote of confidence in your abilities and what you had to offer. And Jim provided so much value to you just as you did for him. So Jim was a stepping stone. Jim was a very important figure in your life, and having your first customer, whether it's Jim, whether it's Jessica, whether it's Jennifer, whether it's Sandra, whether it's Dave, whether it's all these things, or all these different people, they're going to have your own names, can be your own customer, but one way or another, Jim was a stepping stone for your first sale and getting your business off the ground, setting up for success. All right. So with that in mind, I want you to think about Jim when times are tough. As I've explained here, I just painted the picture of your system, and I hope you feel confident with that system. That's all you need to know to really transition your business from your planning stages to actually getting off the ground. But I want you to think about Jim when times are tough. There is going to be a ton of challenges and obstacles along the way. You've probably already experienced some. But this is when you want to think of Jim. Think about that experience. Think about the value that you were able to come through with for him, and think about that interaction you had with him, the relationship you built with him. Even before Jim is a real person to you, think about this hypothetical Jim. Think about this when times are tough, when you're out on your first day, you've knocked on over 100 doors, you're just out of breath, your throat is sore, you put it all on the line, you still don't have a sale, it's just a tough night for you. Think about Jim. Think about the value that you're capable of. Think about what you're capable of and what you've proven or what you're going to prove. Think about Jim when you worked hard for an entire day and you don't have the energy to get sales for the next day. Because when you're getting off the ground, you work hard every single day. There's not a single day that you take off. You don't have the luxury of taking days off, especially in those early stages when you really want to get off the ground. You want to satisfy your customers. You want to go the extra mile. You really want to think about Jim when you're going through these challenges. That's what's going to keep you moving forward. Again, think about Jim when you're having one of those days where nothing's going your way. Maybe you forgot a cleaning brush at your house. Maybe you had to stop at the store multiple times. Maybe you felt you had a stomach ache. Maybe you had a headache. Think about one of those days that just everything's not going your way. Nothing's going your way. Think about Jim. And lastly, think about Jim when you've experienced failure and you're trying to pick yourself back up. Entrepreneurship is all about that constant failure that you go through. Think about Jim when you're experiencing this, because Jim is going to be that driving force for your business. You're going to want to replicate. The more business that you do, the more you grow your business, the more you maybe go on to a bigger, better business. You want to think about that first organic, raw customer experience where there was so much uncertainty. You didn't know, you didn't have a clue about what you were doing. You had a system, you had the pieces there, but you had so much uncertainty. You overcame those obstacles. You've proved yourself. You can do it. You can do it. Think about that. That's transferable to just about anything. If you can overcome taking that leap and becoming an entrepreneur, you can overcome just about anything. All right, so congratulations. You've just mapped out your system. And I'm serious. That's it. You don't need to overcomplicate what you do when you're first getting started. The most important thing is getting off the ground. There's no need to overcomplicate. You don't need to think about all the different fancy aspects of your business that you see 4 or 5 years from now, or that you see other businesses that are established doing, or a fancy advertising campaign, fancy video, all these things. You don't need to think about that when you're thinking about building your optimal system. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to drive your business forward is getting customers and working with those customers and building your business organically. So that's your system. You've built your system. You've mapped it out. Maybe you didn't write anything down. You don't need to write anything down. Maybe you have a lot of notes that you wrote down. But this is the basis point of your system. This is the only system that you need to set up for success. Now that we've mapped out this system, it's time to build the individual parts. So there's a lot of individual parts we want to get through. We're going to talk about so much. We're going to talk about the sales pitch, the booking process, the payment collections process, accounting, putting together your website, setting up a dope website for you getting off the ground, putting together your social media, putting together your Google listing. The most important things that link to this, to getting your business off the ground. But we've set up the system, we've mapped it out. That's the most important thing that we've done at this point in time. And you should be proud, you should be congratulating yourself, because now we're ready to really get into the thick of things and really get off the ground and hit the ground running. So thanks for listening, guys. I hope you feel motivated and excited. And really, I can't stress enough, this is the system. This is what mapping this out is the biggest first step. You've taken that huge first step into transitioning out from behind in the business planning stage, in the works, to now getting out front and center. So let's get started. Let's get down to those key activities, and we'll be off and running in no time.